Hello, guys. So today we'll be doing a career panel called Venture into the Tech Industry, and it's from the insight of a Google Senior Engineering Manager.
So my name is Nadia Payet. I work at Google. I work on Google Maps. I am an senior engineering manager. When I've been at Google for almost 8 years. I started in September 2012.
Awesome. So, Nadia, our first question for you is what first got you interested in pursuing the STEM fields and especially in tech?
I mean, as far as I can remember, I've always loved math and science in general. Um, I really enjoyed when I was in school. I really enjoyed logical reasoning. So anything where you can just like put two and two together, and there was a reason why this was the result. I really liked compared to maybe like the softer topics like literature or other things. It just had a really good appeal to me, or it just made sense. And so, for example, when I was in middle school, and of course high school, solving equations was my favorite thing because it was, you knew there was an exact answer and you just had to find it, and that was really cool. I went into computer science late, actually. When I started the university, I did like a special program in France where um, I did a lot of math and physics. So that was kind of like a core 2 years of math and physics. And then I went to an engineering school, and there the program was electrical engineering and computer science. And at first I thought, oh, electrical engineering is pretty cool. And then I did an internship and I hated it. I was like, this is not the career I want. The jobs were not quite matching like what I had studied in school. And so then I kind of pivoted to do computer science, but that was like already like 4 years in the university program. In France, the engineering programs are in 5 years. So
Mhm.
my last year, I was like, okay, I guess it's computer science. And I was an exchange student at Oregon State University, so I had the chance to like come to the U.S. To do my last year, and so I only took computer science classes, and I loved it. I loved everything about it. Um, I loved that it was the logical reasoning, where you could just write instructions and have the computer do something for you. Um, and it was just kind of like one after the other, just like set of steps, just the same as I love math.
Mhm.
Computer science was just very similar.
Mhm.
And at Oregon State, I took a bunch of fun classes when I was there, and so I did like 3D animation and 3D visualization, and also we wrote some games. So I really loved going from you have nothing to now you can play a game,
Mhm.
or you have nothing and then suddenly you have like a point cloud of data that you can visualize. It's just fantastic. So um, I think I found a passion, something where you have a blank page and then suddenly you can create. That has never left, really. I think that's still the same today. Um, we go from we don't have a solution to we have something, and that's pretty fantastic.
Mhm.
And also, I discovered that computer science has a lot of applications and a lot of really cool jobs and really flexible and exciting jobs at like awesome companies. So that helped. It helped
Awesome.
nurture the passion.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And our second question is how did you narrow down your interest in tech to align with your goals?
So back at the university was when I was an exchange student. My goals were basically find a job when I get out of there. And so when I graduated, so a few years later, because I decided to do a dissertation and so go on with a PhD, because I was basically passionate about this topic, like machine learning and computer vision. Basically, computer vision is machine learning applied to images and videos. And so I wanted to find a job, and so I applied to a bunch of companies the year I was planning to graduate.
Mhm.
And I think a friend referred me to Amazon, And so I got a phone call one day, and I, went through the interview and all of that, and joined Kindle. And the position was a machine learning position. Basically, the computer was tasked with detecting if books, so you can submit your book on Amazon, and Amazon is now your publisher. So Amazon has to check that your book is not like in violation of copyright. And basically, you can copy Harry Potter and try and sell it, which people try. Obviously, there's money to be made. So that was my team, and it sounded really, really cool and interesting, because there are millions of books out there, and so trying to find if this book that's being submitted is even partially in copyright infringement with other books, or the internet, all the work on the internet and all the, like the New York Times articles or whatever, they're all copyrighted.
Mhm.
So you can't just copy even excerpts. So imagine the task of there's a new book. Is any of it copied from the web or from another book or from some other person's content?
Mhm.
So a very difficult task, but a very exciting problem to work on. So I worked at Amazon for about a year, and how I aligned, I think this was just natural, like from my studies. So I kind of like studied something and then tried to find a job that matched what I had studied, basically, which this was kind of a perfect fit. It wasn't images, it was text. But the application of machine learning is like there's a bunch of them. So
Mhm.
text or images, it was kind of the same to me. And it was really fun working at Amazon.
Yeah.
And then I it was back in the day, right? Like it's like 8 years ago. So sorry, for like all the sixth graders, like I've been in the industry as long as you've been in school. Um, but I was looking at phones and how prevalent they had become. And before you could not do much on your phone, like you had games and things, but seeing how phones were now like everywhere and you were doing everything on your phone, buying things, Amazon, the website was there as well. Everything was on the phone. And so I really wanted to get that skill because I didn't do mobile development in college. And that every kid now does this. It wasn't even a class. It wasn't even a thing.
Mhm.
So I really wanted to like, get into that sector of the industry. And Amazon at the time did not have a phone, and then they briefly had one, and then it didn't quite work out. So I looked around to try and like go and work on a different company, basically, to
Mhm.
work on mobile phones. And so I applied to a bunch of different companies, again, the same kind of process. And I was fortunate enough to find a position at Google, on Google Maps Android, which was basically a dream come true. It was like this product that I was using every day that millions and millions of people use. It was a mobile app. It's Google Maps. It was down the street from Amazon. It made it for a pretty easy migration. So I moved to Google in 2012. And since then, just have stayed, and I still work on Google Maps today. So
Mhm.
I think my gut feel was this is the right thing for me, and I was correct. Which,
Mhm.
in hindsight, like this was a product I really liked, so I was like, it can't be that bad. So it was easy to move to Google, and certainly staying. I've had so many challenges, even
Mhm.
just working on maps, and keep on having challenges.
Mhm.
So that's where I am today, still. So 8 years later, not quite the same role, but I started as a software engineer, so just like entry level type engineer, and then grew into a role of a manager, and now manager of managers,
Mhm.
which is the senior engineering manager thing.
Mhm.
So growing the size of my team, basically. And so if you use Google Maps to drive anywhere, that's basically what my team does. We do all of the navigation system, and the traffic updates and all these things in Google Maps.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. So what that kind of leads into what you were talking about, but what is your day-to-day role like?
So as now an engineering manager, so a manager of managers,
Mm-hmm.
my overall team is about 30 engineers, so software engineers, but I manage 3 managers. So I only have 3 direct reports, and then everybody else is indirect. So my job is to understand what my teams are doing, what we're trying to accomplish, and provide that context. So let's say Google Maps, like the whole team, it's like 2,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to have certain goals that we want to do. They are like long-term goals, like multi-year objectives, right? And so we're trying to make progress towards these goals. And so I kind of convert these goals into like what does it mean for navigation and for drivers, and in that space of the car and all of that, what does that mean for us? And then each one of my teams, I structured the teams so we can do these things.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just provide context, guidance, tell folks this is the direction we're going in, and try to like help them basically. So when you think of a leader, especially at Google, which is a large company, I am behind, trying to push and steer in the right direction. So at the end of the year, or at the end of multiple years, we've actually made progress in the right direction. So I most of my day is basically meetings where I talk to people, I try to understand problems, try to unblock them, try to reach out to other teams, um, and make things happen. But I myself don't actually do anything. I'm an enabler. I enable other people,
Mm-hmm.
which is a bit interesting. It's an interesting role. Certainly very different than when I joined, where I was coding and making the things happen. Right now, I'm a bit more removed than that.
Mm-hmm.
Still very interesting.
Yeah. Awesome. So,
Yeah, I can go through an example because sometimes it's a bit like abstract. So let's say I have a team and they're waiting on this partner team. We work with the assistant team, for example. Like the assistant is integrated in navigation,
mm-hmm.
so we have this partnership with them. And let's say something is broken and something is blocked, and we don't understand And so usually my role would be to reach out to the manager on the other side, right? So on the other teams, and figure out what's going on, right? Like, why are we waiting on them? What is happening? Why is this blocked? And usually, here I say they usually don't have the same priorities, which means they know they need to get to it, but it's not at the same priority level as us. For us, we're like, we're blocked. We're like, this is like, there's a fire. We need this to get resolved. And for them, it's like, we'll get to it when we have time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So trying to align priorities and projects and incentives is something I do. And usually we do that before we start a project. So we don't get into that situation. But
Mm-hmm.
as we discuss projects and relative priorities of things, that's basically what I do. I just try to understand like where are they coming from, what are their goals for the year or multi-year,
Mm-hmm.
um, and let's try and align our timelines so we don't end up in like a stuck situation. So that's basically what I spend all my time doing. I'll spend all my time thinking in 6 months we're going to need this from this team, or in a year we're going to need this, and so how do we get that on their radar basically.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so if I do my job right, it's very invisible.
Yeah.
Like, we're never waiting on anyone. We don't know what's happening. Like, what is Nadia doing?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's all planning for the future.
Yeah.
So again, as I say always, I'm like, if I'm doing my job right, you don't know I exist. If I'm not doing my job right, you're constantly blocked and you're constantly experiencing pain and you're
Mm-hmm.
wondering what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So it's a very interesting position to be in. It's barely visible work, but I know I'm working every day, so I'm making things happen.
Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Right. So as I mentioned, I spend a lot of time in meetings, talking to partner teams and external partners as well. For example, one of my teams works on iOS, so the iOS app.
Mm-hmm.
So we talk to Apple. quite a bit actually. And resolving conflicts. So there's a lot of communication skills,
Mm-hmm.
and what I'm good at, I think, is at building the relationships. So we're building strong relationships with other teams. So when we need something, or when my team needs some information, I have the context. I've already built that relationship, or I can quickly ask someone that I already have a relationship with for an answer.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like matchmaking a little bit, where I'm just maintaining and nurturing relationships across the company, which is unusual a little bit, but it's very much the role of the manager. So yeah, this is basically what I do.
Definitely makes sense. Awesome. So, what are some skills that you need to become an excellent developer?
uh, you need not so many, actually, it turns out. I mean, you obviously need the technical skills.
Mhm.
So I encourage everybody to code, learn how to code, and not just code, but also learn how to test. And testing is basically just verify that it's doing the thing you thought it was.
Yeah.
We do a lot of that at Google, at Amazon, everywhere, at Microsoft, Facebook, all of them.
Mhm.
So coding and testing are the core skills. And then if you have knowledge of different programming languages, then that's a bonus. I always say curiosity is like the biggest thing. Being curious, wanting to learn new things, wanting to be okay with not knowing everything, and just having an open mind, because technology has changed tremendously in the past 10 years. I
Yeah.
mean, when I mentioned like phones were becoming a thing, that was like a few years already in my career. So being curious, just what's happening out there, and being willing to change.
Mhm.
So that's kind of the technical skills. But then obviously, and you've heard me talk about my role. There's a ton of collaboration and communication skills, especially at a large company. Um, you will always be working on a team. You're never going to be working by yourself. That is kind of the stereotype that is completely wrong. And people who are really good at that are really, really successful. So I cannot encourage that enough. And it's just because like you have to be able to justify why you want to do stuff in a certain way. You need to be able to tell your coworker why that's correct. And so similar to like when you're doing a math proof, you have to show your work.
Mhm.
That's the communication skills, the writing skills, and the collaboration. You want to be a good partner, right? You want to help your team succeed. So when I say communicating timelines and progress is key to success, it's true. If you just get stuck into I'm going to do it this way, and until it's done, I'm not going to tell anyone anything,
Mhm.
uh, that's a lack of flexibility. You want to be flexible, and by just saying, "Hey, this is going to take a while for me to figure this out," um, it could be enough for someone to say, "Oh, we don't have that time, so let's change a few things to make your life easier."
Mhm.
And so people who are really good at just speaking their mind, basically, and telling everyone what's going on,
Mhm.
are more successful.
Yeah.
It's the same in like your projects. Sometimes just you can make a few changes to the requirements that make it all way easier to like succeed. So it's the
Mhm.
same in the industry. So flexibility, maybe I should just have added that as like a bullet point,
Yeah.
is a big one.
Mhm.
So yeah, these are the skills. They're pretty fundamental.
Mhm. True. True. Awesome. Yeah. So, do you have any advice, tips for our developers? They're 6th to 10th graders who are interested in, perhaps pursuing a
Yeah.
career in software engineering.
Yeah. I always say don't give up. It will get hard, but
Mhm.
it's hard for everyone. It's hard for me. It was hard for me. It was hard for anybody. And
Yeah.
so, and especially programming, it's incredibly frustrating when it's not working.
Yeah.
Um, Incredibly frustrating. You just want to slap the computer,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's just like you don't have a person talking to you, right? So but it's incredibly rewarding when it finally works,
Mhm.
which is why I say always never work alone, or find a group, find friends, find like teammates, so you can bounce ideas and remotivate when you're kind of feeling down because nothing is working and it's frustrating. Believe me, every day is frustrating. There's some frustration, and then suddenly it works, and it's amazing. It's the best feeling in the world. Um, and so obviously in school, get good grades in your STEM classes. Um, Try to major in computer science or computer engineering for software engineering jobs. That is where we hire primarily. We also hire in math majors or just, science majors if there is also a minor in coding, or or good working knowledge of coding or programming. You can't really get a software engineering job if you can't code. That's
Yeah.
just not, it's not going to be a thing. So so yeah, just stick with the hard classes and have fun. It is actually really fun in the end.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, last but not least, we want to extend a big thank you to Nadia for
Thank
taking
you
her
for
time
having
out of
me.
her day, yeah, to talk to us and give us this career panel with some really awesome and valuable insights. Thank you, Nadia.
Thank you, Kristen.